is Keys to the Shop, episode 307, 10 Ways to Level Up Your Cafe Experience. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I'm your host for the show. Thanks a lot for joining me, everybody. It's really awesome to see so many people enjoying the show. If you're new to Keys to the Shop, welcome. There's a plethora, I like using that word, of episodes to choose from. Now, new to Keys to the Shop on the website, we just added a search function. I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but for a long time at keystotheshop.com, we didn't really have a search function, so you couldn't search any particular topic, but now you can. In the upper right-hand corner of the website, there's the search bar. Type in the word or subject you are looking for, and it will pull up either a blog or an episode that has everything to do with that topic. So I hope that's helpful for all of you. Now, I would encourage all of you to subscribe to Keys to the Shop also. If you enjoy the show, just hit subscribe wherever you're listening to the show right now. And also take the time to share this episode with a friend, your team, your colleagues, your distant relatives, people who you rarely talk to on Facebook, whoever, it doesn't matter. Just share Keys to the Shop around if you really love the show. It would mean so much to me. And Keys to the Shop, by the way, on top of doing this podcast, also offers consulting and coaching for you and your business. If you're looking for help in establishing your first coffee business and getting it started on the right foot, or you're an existing operator looking to elevate your operations, people, and quality, then there's a lot of ways that Keys to the Shop Consulting can come alongside you and help you do just that, either remotely with structured consultation over the phone, or we can go to your cafe on site for training or cafe assessments. I would love to have a conversation with you about what that might look like for your business. Just email me, chris@keystotheshop.com, for more information to set up a discovery call, and we'll talk about your needs and how Keys to the Shop Consulting can help you. Again, that email for Keys to the Shop Consulting, chris@keystotheshop.com. Now, today's episode of Keys to the Shop is brought to you by Prima Coffee. Prima Coffee is one of the world's leading specialty coffee equipment suppliers because they curate the best from all over the world, and they work with you to get you the right equipment for whatever needs you have. And it's a big deal. You know, it's an expensive thing to buy equipment for your coffee shop. And so you want to make sure that you're getting the right equipment and that you're working with people who are definitely dedicated to your success. If you go to prima-coffee.com, you're going to see an amazing selection of equipment, all the smallwares you could ever want, commercial equipment like espresso machines, grinders, brewers, under-counter refrigeration, but also a lot of resources to help you learn about coffee, the equipment, and running an awesome business over at prima-coffee.com. And you can get 5% off your entire order right now if you're a Keys to the Shop listener by using the code KEYS5 at checkout. That's KEYS and the number 5. Gets you 5% off whatever you order at prima-coffee.com. So if you're looking for the best commercial equipment and people to work with you to make sure it's the right equipment for you, definitely check out prima-coffee.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by the world's leader in excellence for plant-based beverages, the Barista Series from Pacific. They work so hard to make sure that each product in their extensive lineup of plant-based performance beverages actually performs on the bar the way you dream a plant-based beverage will. Made for and tested by the best baristas in the world, it stands up to the heat from steaming, produces unmatched silky texture, and it keeps the taste of the beverage focused on the coffee. I think your customers are really going to love it. I think you're going to love it too. Go to pacificfoodservice.com to find out more information and try it for yourself. If you're looking for excellence in plant-based beverages for your shop, definitely check out the Barista Series from Pacific. Okay, everybody. Well, today on the show, I wanted to cover some things that I believe will lead to higher levels of success for your coffee shop. And part of the philosophy that I have about what constitutes a great coffee shop, outside of the big impact areas like your location, making sure you have enough capital to start with, those are the big must-haves, among many others, that we're going to assume that you have in place already. But there are things that make or break a coffee shop, I think. that come in the package of small things. They come in small packages. They're details that when they're missed, you don't necessarily miss them, but together they create a large-scale impact that creates a bad experience for either your staff or your customers or both. And today I wanted to talk about 10 things that I believe if you just took the time to tweak and make it a better experience or make progress on, that you would be able to see an incredible change in the way that everybody experiences your coffee bar. And when it comes to, getting customers in the door and getting them to spend more, be more enthusiastic about your brand, it really does come down to the details. So let's kick off the list with something that I love to harp on, and that is your bathroom experience. And so let's just think about the fact that when people spend time in a coffee shop, they spend time in your bathroom. This is one of those areas that often is, what, in my opinion, the most overlooked area of the coffee bar, because it's not really the most pleasant thing to actually pay attention to or to clean. So oftentimes we just skimp on cleaning it, or we don't provide the kind of facilities that allow for customers to use the bathroom in a functional way. We'll choose fixtures that have like either really dim lighting or a toilet bowl that's far too small for a range of different sized people that are in your cafe. And it is maybe one of the dirtiest places in the coffee bar. And this is one of those areas that I think most coffee bars just fail in. They fail to keep up their bathroom, and they actually don't put much attention into what they're providing the customers in the bathroom. As long as the stuff flushes and there's toilet paper and running water and soap, in some cases you're lucky if you get those. It just gets really weird in coffee bar bathrooms because we don't consider it a part of the hospitality experience, but it surely is. And you know this by going to a cafe where they have a really nice bathroom. And it doesn't have to be expensive, but it has to have the basics. If I was going to go down the list of things that a bathroom, in my opinion, has to have, you've got to have 2 trash cans at least. Foot-operated trash can, regular, a trash can that's separate for sanitary napkins and things like that. You have to have some sort of paper towel dispenser. You have to have hot and cold water. You've got to have a soap dispenser that is wall-mounted and not something that you just pick up. These are basics. Good lighting, and it has to be clean. Think about the coffee bars or restaurants where you've gone to where the bathroom is kind of dirty. We register that it's pretty dirty, but we don't necessarily think that's uncommon. What's uncommon is when we have a really great bathroom experience, and it really makes you love the place even more. There is a vulnerable thing to actually go to the bathroom in a coffee bar, in a public setting like that. And when people give you that kind of trust by going to your bathroom, you've got to uphold some kind of a standard. And so if you really want to level up the experience that people have in your coffee bar, you will make it your mission to upgrade your bathroom. Put in the things that are necessary in those bathrooms. I mentioned some things that you need to have in there, but I failed to mention changing tables. You need to have changing tables in all of your bathrooms. I can't tell you how many times I've had customers ask me if there's some place where they can change their child who, they don't regulate themselves. That's why they have diapers. And they need to change this child on the floor of a bathroom. It's really gross. So having a changing table for sure, but a regular cleaning schedule, at least 2 or 3 times, cleaning the bathroom in an in earnest way per shift, in my opinion, is reasonable. What we see as deep cleaning often is just regular cleaning. And so if we build into our regular cleaning schedules the habit of maintaining the bathrooms very well for customers, stocking them, making sure things are functional, it really will go a long way to make people be impressed by your coffee bar and have a better experience. So that was number 1. Now, number 2 on the list, and I know there's a bathroom joke there. Number 2 on the list is bar cleaning. Maybe some episodes of the show we've talked about the fact that you have to clean as you go. I talk about a cleaning tax. In other words, every drink sort of has attached to it, in my mind, attacks where I take 5 to 10 seconds to clean up after the drink I made and in preparation for the drink I'm going to make. So that is huge. But most of the time when people walk into a coffee bar, what they see is utter chaos behind the bar. This is one of those things that we used to be proud of, actually, in the industry. I remember an old Barista Guild advertisement. I don't know if it was in like Fresh Cup or something like that magazine, but it was a grinder with a piling of coffee on it. It was just like the dirtiest grinder, big old pile of coffee, and that we thought that was really funny. And in the day, it wasn't uncommon for that to be a common scene in the coffee bar, is just a ton of coffee. But now I think as we've gotten our bearings as professionals, I think we expect a little bit more from ourselves, and having a clean bar is highly achievable. You can go overboard with anything, but I think if we just tried like 100% more than we do right now, we're not still in any danger of going overboard with how clean our bars should be. And it's easy to maintain a coffee bar if you're cleaning as you go, truly cleaning as you go. And that doesn't mean make a mess and then clean it up. It means work clean. It means don't make a mess when you're working. And if you do, by chance, make a mess, clean that little mess up. But if you're making a big mess and you think, no, I just have to clean as I go, and I'm making a big mess all the while, you're doing it wrong. Your coffee bar in the middle of a rush shouldn't look like a war zone. Your coffee bar should look pretty similar to the way it looked in the opening shift all throughout the day. But that is something that we need to train into each individual and focus on our work habits so that we're more accurate with how we use coffee, hot water, syrups, towels, all that stuff. A little bit of intentionality goes a long way. And when a customer walks in, their first impressions of the space is going to be what they see behind the bar when they're ordering. And chaos begets chaos. And that is not something we want to project. We want to be in control. We want to be clean. And we want to clean as we go, work clean, and keep the bar sparkling all the livelong day. Now, third on the list is the Condiment Station. This is one of those areas that makes a big impact on the way the customer views your level of care in their experience in your coffee shop. And they stow that information away. All these little cues and signs and experiences are stowed away in their brains, and it is drawn up later on when they're making a decision about what coffee shop they want to go to. And they'll go to the one that has the fewest number of those little checks, those little gut checks that they have. Whether it's the bathroom or your bar, and now the Condiment Bar. Condiment Bar is hard. It is really hard to keep that thing stocked and clean because I don't know what people do, but I feel like it's just an outlet for the release of aggression. Whether that's cream on the counter, people using sugar on the counter like their Salt Bay. It is really crazy, the things that I've seen on condiment bars. But because we know that that's true, and I'm sure that you have, in your head a billion different ways that condiment bars have gone sideways, when we know something is going to happen, we need to plan for how we're going to respond to it. And we need to keep it in check. So baristas who is closest to the condiment bar will be to constantly be looking at the condiment bar and keeping it kept up, keeping it stocked, keeping it clean. Keeping the condiment bar clean also means wiping down the walls, the sides of the bar itself, even the trash can next to the condiment bar, so people aren't throwing trash through the flaps of the trash can and they're just crusted with drips of coffee and milk. When you see that happening, you know that nobody in that coffee bar has really been paying much attention to the condiment bar. And this is one of the early write-ups that I had on my own performance as a barista, was that I did not pay attention to the condiment bar, but I was really into latte art, which, go figure, I guess that's just a common thing with baristas. So the Condiment Station is hugely important, making sure that that's kept up, stocked, cleaned, and that we have people paying attention to it. And it's baked into the responsibilities of the people on bar to do all of that. All right, so now we're going to the seating area. One of my biggest pet peeves, and I'm sure this is true for every single customer who's experienced this, is wobbling tables. wobbling tables with drinks that are filled it just equals disaster. And I don't know, maybe it's subconscious, but I see a lot of baristas these days underfilling drinks. Is it because you know your tables are wobbly and you're just like, look, trust me, you don't want a 16-ounce latte. You want a 14-ounce latte. And you'll thank me when you get to that table. Because look at all of the folded up napkins and drink sleeves that are underneath that table, and it's still wobbling. So what can we do to fix this? Get tables that don't wobble. There's lots of different levelers that you can use with tables. You can bolt them into the floor. If you have to have tables that move, you can simply use levelers that are flexible and they're not just screw on. But if you do just have the typical cast iron T-shaped table bases, you're just going to have to send somebody out into the cafe to make sure that things are stable. You've got to have stable surfaces for people to have their hot liquids on. This is really simple. I go into a coffee shop now. I actually pack a rubber shim in my bag. It's always with me because I know there's going to be a good chance that whatever table I sit in is going to be a wobbly table. So I feel like it's if we can solve this problem even halfway, it would be like finding a cure for the common cold in terms of customer experiences in our coffee shops. And don't we want our customers to view our coffee shops as solid places to go? If we give them a wobbly experience, it's going to undermine our efforts to do that. Now, beyond the tables themselves is just the idea of maintaining the cleanliness of the tables in the customer seating area itself. In your coffee shop right now, I am going to guess that in the customer seating area, underneath a table that's even visible from where you sit on the bar, there's probably cobwebs, a straw wrapper, a tissue, or something that has been there for maybe a few weeks. And we just kind of write it off sometimes because we've got bigger fish to fry. And it is sort of a sign that we are neglecting one of the main things that the customer experiences in the shop. If we're going to default any direction, it's going to be falling back and hiding in our work and getting behind the bar and making sure we're taking care of things behind the bar. But the seating area sometimes is really neglected. We become blind to the things that the customer experiences. And that's why customers oftentimes will have to tell us about things that happen in the cafe because, let's face it, if they never told us, we would hardly ever know. Listen to the shift break called Spiders. That was I think 2018 Halloween. I forget exactly what shift break that was, but I'll link to it in the show notes. It's basically talking about having a mentality that is tuned in to all corners of the cafe. Paying attention to how well you care for the seating area is huge, but it's a simple step. It's a simple tweak and change in the way that you pursue hospitality that makes a big difference. Now, so far, all of these areas that we've talked about, your customers are being impacted by. They all make up the sum total of what the experience is that they have in your coffee shop outside of the actual taste of the coffee itself. But one thing that we don't often talk about in the sensory aspect of things is smell. This is not something that's always within your control, but it is something that I see coffee shops doing that it just bewilders me. Two things on smell. Don't mop your coffee bar before close. Just don't do it. That's my opinion, of course. You're listening to Keys to the Shop, where I am giving you my opinions. But you just make people smell Simple Green when they're trying to enjoy their lavender latte or whatever it is. You make them smell Pine Sol, and it's just going to ruin the experience. Save it for when there's no customers in the cafe. Our sense of smell is hardwired directly to our brain, and I think has been discovered as being one of the most important senses when it comes to recall and memory. You've had this happen where you've walked by something, you've smelled it, and it takes you back to a time in your past, even when you were a child. I mean, there's a lot of emotions tied up in this. And if we make people have to associate our brand with off smells, then I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot. If you have to clean up spills in the cafe, consider not using the mop unless it's really a bad spill, but try to use a mop that don't like put cleaner on the mop and then wheel it out to the cafe if you don't have to. Take care of spills and spot spills with unscented options if you can, so that you're not ruining that. We have to pay attention to all these details, including when we wipe down tables. I still see people walk around with a spray bottle and they mist the spray bottle directly onto the table. There's no reason why we can't mist the spray bottle behind the bar onto the towel enough so that we can go to a table and wipe it down. And if we're wiping down tables often enough, that's not going to be too big of an issue. But what happens when we mist that bottle 3 or 4 tables over? I smell it, and I just start, and I just start coughing, wanted to cough because now I had no idea why all of a sudden I'm smelling this. I turn around, oh, barista's cleaning the tables. It just reminds me of the lunchroom in high school, honestly. So anyway, I think that's a huge one. That's why I included it on the list, and it's often not considered that big of a deal, but I think it is a huge one. So number 6 on our list is service. This is, I categorize this as simple, but maybe it's not so simple. If I had to narrow down service to one word that would make a big difference in the coffee shop, it would be attentiveness. Attentiveness is something that you can only really have if you've got a bunch of other things already lined up. You've already got to be at work with a mindset that you're focused on work. And in that, you've already got to determine that your focus is not so much inward, but it's going to be outward. And the service that you give the customer has to be one that gives them the latitude to be authentically who they are with what they order, how they order. And if we are not attentive, we force people into a mold and make them dance the dance, and it feels just rather stark and cold, like checking out M&Ms at a Walgreens. Something else we can add here is that you give people genuine service. The whole point of genuine service and being attentive to people's needs is that you are there for them. And when you shift your mindset just to the idea that you are there for them, everything you do behind the bar, things that you say to people around you is going to shift into a more generous tone and generous nature. It starts at the top. You've got to have values that back that up as an owner, and your managers have to exemplify that, and then the staff after that. But it comes down to having an others-focused mindset that directs the things that you do with your time and energy behind the bar. That makes a big difference. And I say that it's a simple thing to do. We're talking about shifting a mindset can sometimes not be that easy, especially if maybe you've hired wrong. You don't have people who are tuned into that as much. It might be something that you start to cultivate over time. And as employees turn over, you start to get more people who exemplify that particular trait of others-focused, attentive service. So number 7 is your schedule. 2 things here. 1, your schedule. And I mean it literally, not just the schedule that you do for the cafe. We'll get to that. If you're a boss, manager, trainer, or owner, you need to have some kind of an organized list of things that you need to do that week and where you're going to spend your time, what you're going to do when you're there, just the same as an employee will need to have in order for them to be productive in the space. Oftentimes, when I'm talking with consulting clients, this is one of the things that we discuss. Because you've been wearing so many hats, it's easy to simply be in reaction mode all the time and figure, I don't need a schedule. I just respond to what people need me to do all week, and that's my work, and I don't have time for anything else. But that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. It may be that it's grown to that point now, but there are some things that you can walk back simply by starting a habit of sitting down at the beginning of the week and carving out what that week's priorities are, where you need to be, who you need to talk to, what you need to get done, and then continually keeping that up. And there's a lot more to that than just what I've said, but that's really important. Secondly, the schedule that you do create for staff, a great way to upgrade what you do with the schedule is to schedule people as far in advance as you possibly can. So many coffee bars are scheduling week to week, and then what ends up happening is your staff are waiting for the schedule to come out to make plans, and their life is on hold. And in some ways, we like to think, oh, well, so is my life. My life is on hold. My life is this coffee shop, so they can wait. But this is one of those things that adds to the tension and stress of working in a coffee shop that's unnecessary. If you're a coffee bar who is only doing 1 week at a time, and oftentimes the schedule is late, set yourself a goal, make a resolution, and actually dedicate yourself to doing 2 weeks. 2 weeks in advance, then 3 weeks in advance. I know some people that do a month in advance. What does this do? It gives people the opportunity to know what they can and cannot do with their own personal life, and it means they're going to be more present at work. They're going to resent work less, and they're going to focus on it more. Will that happen 100% of the time? Of course not. But we need to put the odds in our favor. And by doing your schedule well in advance and having it come out on a regular day so people can count on it, will make your staff happy. It'll take a load off of your mind and give you a lot of breathing room. Because once you do 3 weeks in advance or 4 weeks in advance, you just need to do 1 week's schedule every week after that to stay up to date. So build a schedule for yourself and make sure that you're actively moving away from 1 week at a time scheduling and scheduling at least 2, 3, even 4 weeks in advance for your staff. And I think you'll all be happier when that happens. Okay, so number 8 on our list of 10 simple ways to upgrade your coffee bar, to level things up, to refine the experience of your coffee bar, is to prioritize feedback. Now, this is true for both feedback from customers and from employees. This is one of those mindset shifts again. One mindset says, when I receive feedback, I will deal with it. Another mindset, which I like, this is like those Goofus and Gallant comic strips. I don't know if you like Highlights magazine. Goofus is only waiting until feedback comes to him before he deals with it. Gallant is soliciting feedback and expecting it and is excited to receive it. And part of the reason why I think that is a good mentality to have is because people have thoughts all the time about the way that your coffee bar runs, the quality of your beverages, the space, how it is to be an employee there. So if you're only waiting until people bring something to you and not providing a platform for them to know that you're actively searching for things to be brought to you, then you're probably not getting the full picture even when things do get brought up. It's easy for somebody in the former category, that mindset that's just not interested in really getting feedback, but will take it when it comes. It's easy for them to assume that, okay, that's done, that, no news is good news, and we're just going to go from there, right? We're going to assume that was it, and that's the end of it. But I think we all know that that's not true. Usually there's a lot more to this situation. And our mindset has to be, how do I set up my business so that we have constant feedback and we keep short accounts with both our guests and our staff so they feel comfortable and safe and excited to bring up ideas, feedback about experiences, and they know that when we receive that, we're excited too, because that gives us a better picture of how our businesses are being perceived, how we're being perceived. And I don't know about you, but that would help me sleep more at night, knowing exactly what kind of impact my business is making because I've got that regular feedback. So prioritizing feedback, shifting your mindset to somebody who actually wants it and is setting up your business to receive it on a regular basis, asking people, what do they think? And how are things going? How can we improve? How can I be a better boss? What do you think about this beverage? Doing that on a regular basis will create a way more dynamic environment than the kind of environment that really tries to avoid getting feedback at all and kind of gets defensive when feedback is brought to them. So number 9 would be to update and maintain your equipment and your tools. We have an episode called Just Fix It. And it is basically me pleading with you to fix the broken knockbox, to buy another shaker. to get the tools that people need to do their jobs, yes. But what if something breaks? It's so important to fix it and replace it, and even to just have a backup on hand so that we don't have to scramble to replace something that we need to do our jobs. We need to have some kind of plan in place that says we are going to be hyper responsive to the upkeep and maintenance, fixing and replacing the things that we need, whether that's coffee equipment or tools in preparation of coffee equipment, cups or decanters and things like that. We need to have these things updated and maintained throughout the life of our business because things wear out. So many of the items that we have in the shop are designed with the idea of, planned obsolescence. In other words, it's only going to last a year. It's only going to last 2 years. It's designed to wear out. And that's why sometimes that item that you bought was cheap, because it doesn't have a long life. Other things that do have a long life just need to be maintained. Another area of updating and maintaining is your checklists and your systems. Your business grows and the needs of the business change. So many coffee shops have outdated systems and checklists because they're just neglected, and baristas are doing the work that needs to be done, but it's now mostly oral tradition more than it is written down policy. So if you say, we got a new hire, and you're relying on the checklist from 1 year ago, actually the baristas know that half of that checklist doesn't apply anymore. You just haven't updated it, and you haven't bothered to get feedback you need to accurately update the systems and the checklists. So making sure that every version of policy, systems, SOPs, checklists, all that stuff is up to date all the time is so critical. It helps people do a wonderful job. It helps the baristas provide an amazing experience for your customers. When you don't have this in place, what ends up happening is you pass the confusion down the line, and ultimately it ends up with a lot of confusion for the customer experience because you're out of something, or you can't make this because this is broken or that's broken, and it's a huge frustration. And our attitude sometimes with customers is that if they're inconvenienced by some short-sightedness on our part, that we expect them to give us a lot more grace because we are owners of small businesses, we are operators, we're managers, we're working in customer service, and it's really hard, and you don't know what it's like. Honestly, it's really not productive to think that way. It doesn't change the situation. It doesn't actually absolve you from responsibility to find a solution to a problem that somewhere upstream was created by you. And all of that starts with dedicating yourself to keeping your tools, your equipment, your systems, your processes, all that stuff updated and maintained. And now finally, on our list of 10 ways to level up your coffee shop, these are simple things you can do to make a better experience, is to focus on the work. Now, I'm going to unpack this a little bit because there's a couple of different ways that I mean this. One way is when you're at work, you should focus on the work, especially while you're at work. You should focus on making sure that part of the dialogue that you're having with people, in fact, most of the dialogue that you're having with people, if you're in a leadership position especially, and even if you're not, is going to be focused on doing well at what you are being paid to do in that moment. We like to talk about professional progress and building our careers, but oftentimes when we're on the shift, we're so passive. Like we get aggressive in our minds about building our businesses. We get aggressive in our minds about building our careers, and we get on shift and we're all just chill. It doesn't make sense. That's the place where you build. That's the exact place where it happens. But what often ends up happening is we just end up filling the time going through the motions and talking about anything and everything except for the work itself. And that kind of ruins our focus, because if we're not focused on the work, then it's hard for us to grow. It's hard for us to see the areas where we need to improve, or where the business needs to improve even. So focusing on work, especially while you're at work, is huge. And the second way that I mean this is to focus on what you are doing in your ecosystem business-wise, and don't get so focused on what other people are doing. So what people are doing outside of your business might be inspirational, but oftentimes what we let it do is it distracts us, or we try to impress our peers rather than serve our customers, or it makes us feel bad that we're not doing what they should do. We get desperate and we just try to copy and paste what the big players in the business are doing, not realizing that we've lost the focus on our own work, on our own neighborhoods, ecosystems, etc. So focusing on work while at work keeps you focused on building the business and attuned to the details of the business, and it keeps you on track for building yourself as a professional, and not getting distracted by spending 8 hours absolutely avoiding talking about work at work. And so focusing on work while at work and focusing on your own ecosystem and serving your customers in your neighborhood, in your community well, is one change in how you operate that if you make it, will make a huge difference, I think, immediately and in the long run. So there's a lot that we talked about today. I think all of these things are achievable and are going to make a big impact positively in your business in the short term and especially in the long term. It just takes choosing one thing, maybe a couple things, detailing out a plan, making it a regular part of the responsibilities of yourself and your team. Of course, connecting that back to your values as a company and why it really matters. And then as you go through all of the things on the list, you're going to start to see a big difference in the way that both customers and staff experience your coffee shop. So I hope that this episode was helpful for you today. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback about this episode or any other episode of Keys to the Shop, just reach out via email. That is chris@keystotheshop.com. You can also use that email to reach me if you're interested in Keys to the Shop consulting. That is chris@keystotheshop.com. And now that we're talking about details and making sure that you've got the ingredients to upgrade your shop, there is a place where all of that kind of conversation happens all day long for 2 to 3 days. Of course, I'm talking about Coffee Fest trade shows. Over 25 years, they've been operating as, I think, the number one resource for retailers, coffee retailers, to build a thriving business and to focus on the small and the big stuff that makes it possible for your business to launch well and to be sustainable for the long term. The last show of 2021 is coming up in Portland, November 5th and the 6th, and then there are shows in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Seattle. I would encourage you to go to coffeefest.com to learn more information about the seminars, trainings, workshops, the trade show floor, and the community and the competitions that all make up the wonderful event we call Coffee Fest. I will be at all of these shows, and I can't wait to meet you there. Again, for more information and to register, go to coffeefest.com. And with that, that is the end of our episode today, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. Be sure to subscribe, share the show with a friend, and as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.